Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You of course can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And yes, Henry Cavill has had an exclusive interview with James Hibbard of The Hollywood Reporter. He talks a lot about Superman, about his possible future, about the Superman of colour, about Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, but he talks about a whole host of things. So we're going to read this out. Then we're going to discuss and, really pick it to pieces about the stuff he talks about the great superhero in red and yellow. So let's go for this. Why Henry Cavill basically already is James Bond by James Hillard, should I say. The British actor with a soldier's discipline, a gentleman's demeanour and a high tolerance for extreme punishment opens up about The Witcher Season 2, Highlander, his Superman and Mission Impossible futures, and the elusive spy role directors insist he was born to play. Henry Cavill stands in a Miami hotel room looking like a comic book drawing made real. He's 6'2" but seems taller because he's so broad. His muscles stretch on an ordinary camel-coloured knit shirt into a bulky superhero outfit. I'm amazed how many people recognise me with a mask on, the actor says, and it's unclear if he's being modest or truly doesn't know how cinematic he looks. Even his wavy jet black hair with its jagged widow's peak would give him away. You may recognise the hairline from films such as Mission Impossible Fallout. Yet as we sit down for the first of our two interviews, Cavill's brawn is quickly contrasted by his genteel demeanour that his colleagues say is typical of the 38-year-old Englishman. Take the way the Witcher actor typically starts his days on set. Cavill will select a crew member, say hello, shake their hand and ask how their day is going. Then he'll approach another crew member and do the same. Then another and another. It's to the point where sometimes our ADs are like, okay, we have a huge crew, you can't ask everyone, says the Witcher showrunner Lauren Schish, explained Cavill. A set is often rush, and we forget the basic human decencies. I want people to know I respect everything they do, and they're just doing a job like I am. Wow, what a lovely guy. To me, it's just respect and good manners. This is how good he is. But Grace Randolph called him a diva. Interesting, isn't it? It's a characteristically nonchalant answer from somebody whose approach to his work is anything but casual. From Cavill's recent selection of roles to his work ethic to his social media engagement, his strategic deliberation reflects the hardcore gamer that he is. He's played Superman in a trio of DC films which have grossed more than $2 billion, launched the Witcher franchise, Netflix's most watched original series, until Bridgerton came along and had a scene-stealing turn in 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout, which brought in $800 million worldwide as the highest-grossing film in the franchise. All of this has positioned Cavill as arguably the biggest action hero in the world, who isn't a household name yet. Zack Snyder calls Cavill a warrior monk. Fallout director Christopher Quarry sees Cavill a bit differently. In a town full of celebrities, Henry is a classic movie star, yes, and he may be one of the final movie stars, so let's treasure him, right? It's not like there was something in the water in the 1930s and 40s that there isn't today, Macquarie says. Movie stars are not as abundant now for two simple reasons. The industry wanted a cultivated stars. There were people ready to do the work required to be stars. Henry is in the category of somebody hell-bent on doing the work, and that work is hard. Cavill is certainly working more than ever. Set to star in John Wick director Chad Zdarsky's reboot of an action fantasy Highlander, reprise his role as Sherlock Holmes in the Netflix sequel movie Enola Holmes 2, and head the all-star cast of Kingsman director Matthew Vaughn's spy thriller Argylle. And December the 17th, The Witcher returns for season 2, with Cavill having just signed a new deal, paying more than $1 million per episode, sources say. There's also never-ending speculation that Cavill might be in line to play the most highly coveted character in action cinema, James Bond. For his part, Cavill acts vaguely perplexed by all this. Something has changed, something has shifted, he says. of his busy coming slate. After 21 years of hard work, I have 3 jobs lined up. Maybe it's me, maybe it's my approach, maybe my value as a commodity increased being attached to things like The Witcher. Now I can really focus on the storytelling and grow from here. Snyder recalls the moment when he was sure that the relatively unknown Cavill was right for the career-making role of Superman in Man of Steel. It was 2010 and the director was shooting some test footage. With the actor to present to the studio, he asked Cavill to try on one of Christopher Reeve's original spandex suits from the 1980s Superman films. When you see the suit on the ground, it's kind of shriveled up. It's just spandex. It looks like, oh God, that's not going to be cool, Snyder says. Henry put it on in this trailer, and there's a version of this where he comes out and is like, I'm Superman, and you're like, okay, it's Halloween. But Henry came out, and even the crusty grips we hired for the test got quiet. Everybody was heart attack serious. He had just the right energy. We were like, oh, he's Superman. That's what Superman looks like. Cavill says he was thinking something else. If I'm going to be honest, what was going through my mind was, Lord, I'm too fat to be wearing this suit right now. Cavill says dryly, and also I can't believe I'm actually doing this. There was a sense of excitement, achievement and nervousness. Man of Steel was a success and fans clamoured for a direct sequel, but Warner Brothers seemed intent on following Marvel's Avengers playbook with multi-character mashup titles such as 2016's Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice and 2017's Justice League, the latter of which underperformed critically and financially to the point that the studio reshuffled its executive ranks and slate plans. True to form, Cavill largely avoided engaging on the controversies that followed Justice League, such as the reports of replacement director Joss Whedon's abusive on-set behaviour, though he did acknowledge in an interview that the theatrical cut didn't work. He now says Snyder did a wonderful job with his Snyder Cut re-edit. In May, DC announced the development of a black Superman film, making Cavill's return as a superhero icon even more uncertain. It's exciting. Superman's far more than skin colour, Cavill says. Superman isn't ideal. Superman's an extraordinary thing that lived within our hearts. Why not have multiple Superman going on? Why not have multiple Supermen going on, should I say? Joaquin Phoenix did a wonderful Joker movie, so what if it's not tied to the rest of the franchise? They have multiple Superman comic storylines happening at the same time. He's got a point. Is this what they're doing? Is he hinting about this? We'll discuss it after the article. Yet the lack of follow-up to Man of Steel does nettle the actor. It feels like unfinished business. The film ended with Superman breaking his moral code to kill the villainous General Zod, a highly controversial decision among fans that was setting up a follow-up storyline. There is still a lot of storytelling for me to do as a Superman, and I would absolutely love the opportunity, Cavill says. The killing of Zod gave a reason for the character never to kill again. Well done, because this is what I've always said, isn't it? Superman falling to the ground and screaming afterward, I don't think that was originally in the script, but I wanted to show the pain he had. Brilliant. I did far more emotional takes they didn't choose. Tears were happening. He just killed the last remaining member of his species. That's the choice he made in that moment, and he'll never do that again. Wow, brilliant. Thank you, Henry, for saying that. There's an opportunity for growth after that to explore the psyche of Superman as a deep, seemingly invulnerable god-like being, but with real feeling on the inside. As I always say, the cape is still in the closet. Wow, wow, this guy is so nuanced and intelligent when he talks about Superman. Wow, I love all of this. When franchise actors dip into geekdom, you often get the sense of the enthusiasm is a dutiful part of the job, but Cavill passionately discussed at length the journey of Kal-El, a character he hasn't played in years, and you realise, oh, this guy really is a gamer geek. He might not look like he was created by a secret British AI program as a masculinity template, but he cares about the fancy worlds he inhabits. Yes, he does, and I love him for it. Hell, he even named his dog Cal. Cavill spent his teenage years playing rugby while attending the Hogwarts-esque Stowe boarding school in the oft-filmed pastoral county of Buckinghamshire. The son of a stockbroker, father and a mother who taught aromatherapy and massage before working as a secretary, he intended to enlist in the military like a couple of his older siblings. He's the fourth of 5 brothers. If acting had not snatched me up at 17 years old from boarding school, there's a very high chance that I would have joined the Royal Marines, he says. Then when he was 16, Russell Crowe came to his school to film A Beautiful Mind. Cavil boldly approached the Gladiator star, introduced himself, direct, polite handshake, even back then, and said he would like to be an actor and asked Crowe for advice. Now I remember them discussing this during the marketing of Man of Steel. This is great. Crowe's reply wasn't particularly meaningful, but later he generously sent Cavil a gift package that included a card signed with his encouraging message: a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The following year, Cavil caught the eye of a casting director visiting his school and landed in role in 2002's Count of Monte Cristo. His first part of real significance was being cast in 2007 as a series regular on Showtime's The Tudors, and a couple of years later he scored his first big screen lead in a major release with the fantasy film Immortals. Even early on, directors noticed the actor's soldier-like ethos. What I love about Henry is he's a very serious person who doesn't take himself seriously, says director Vaughan, who first worked with Cavil on 2007's Stardust. He has a military discipline and a soldier's sense of humour. That's great. He also has a soldier's endurance. In 2017, Cavil was hanging off the side of an Airbus BK-17 helicopter in New Zealand, standing on the skid with freezing below 0 degrees and blasting in his face and firing a saw machine gun. By this time, the actor had played Superman and starred in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and was now filming Fallout opposite Tom Cruise. He was supposed to be receiving instructions from Macquarie, but even with his earpiece cranked as loud as possible, he could barely understand a word with those chopper blades roaring, and had to largely wing his performance. Cavil, his ear ringing with tinnitus, would go back up and up again and again, privately drawing on his childhood military ambitions, thinking about how elite soldiers survive boot camp. It's what they call mental stamina. Because what you believe is your physical boundary is actually just a mental boundary, Cavil says. It was extraordinarily uncomfortable. My body did not want to keep getting back in the helicopter, but I just kept doing it. Recalls Macquarie. It was an extreme form of physical punishment. We would get back to base camp and his face was literally frozen. He couldn't make facial expressions. I don't know another actor who would do that. Not only do it, but do it with full commitment and never complain. Again, this is the actor that Grace Randolph calls a diva. Who's the real diva? Grace? Macquarie offers solid evidence the brutal 4-minute bathroom brawl with Cavil's character August Walker and Cruise's Ethan Hunt in Fallout was originally going to include another well-known male actor in the sequence's third role. The idea was that audiences would be surprised that Hunt and Walker's target was played by this other actor, then would be even more shocked when the character was abruptly killed off. The actor was put into a fight evaluation but couldn't keep pace with Cruise and Cavil, which is why one of the film's stuntmen, Liang Yang, was cast as the scene's third fighter. It's a sequence other actors, when learning the level of commitment required, simply opted out, Macquarie, he says. Yet Cavil brought more to his Fallout role than his physical toughness, the moustache and stubble look. Cavil's idea, that meme-worthy first cocking move, improvised. Walker's subtle wit. Macquarie rewrote the character to take advantage of Cavil's dry sense of humour, which has so far been the actor's most underutilised on-screen asset. Cavil even got the franchise's only F-bomb. The end result was that you had a bad guy in the movie who never lost that leading man appeal, Macquarie says. Walker was killed off in Fallout, a move that Macquarie says fans have given him endless grief about on social media, yet the franchise has methods of bringing back familiar faces, obviously with the mask thing as well. Cavill doesn't appear in the upcoming 7th film, but an appearance in the planned 8th film remains possible. I'm in the process of rewriting Mission 8 right now, this afternoon. I could turn a page and any actor from the past could come back, the director teases. This is a no such thing as death in movies, only unavailability. Chasing a high-commitment, long-running TV series just as one film career is taking off might seem like an odd move, but when Netflix announced series based on Andrzej Sapkowski's Witcher books and video games in 2017, Cavill lobbied hard for the role. He was a fan of the Witcher games and always played them like he does all console titles, on their hardest modes, restarting the levels over and over, trying to fully master them. Me and Henry are very different. I always play FIFA on the easy level, so I can win, because I hate to lose. Cavill says of the role, a couple of months after they had gone through their casting process, my agent called and said they've asked you to do an audition. You don't have to do this. I'm like, I'll do it. They said, really? Are you sure? I said, of course, it's The Witcher. In the series, Rivia is a stoic, silver-haired monster hunter for hire who wanders a fantasy world. In season 2, he mentors a young princess, Freya Allen, and they journey to the fortress where he was trained. He knows he's number one on the call sheet, and there's a great responsibility that comes with that. Showrunner Hisrich notes, a lot of times that person can make the show a hurricane that revolves around them. Henry worked hard to make that not so. He's on time, he always knows his lines, he always knows his choreography, and certainly always knows his action. After the success of season 1, which included spawning several spin-offs in development, Cavill sent Hisrich a flurry of emails with ideas for how to take the second season to the next level. The lockdown was an opportunity to look at everything. Let's review that, Cavill says. How about we tweak it this way? How about we adapt that? In particular, Cavill wanted Geralt to open up more to the audience. A lot of the notes he was sending to me were about Geralt's dialogue. Could he first of all say more? Hisrich says everybody came out of season 1 laughing and loving Geralt's fuming, but Henry was saying that when you read the books, you spend a lot of time in Geralt's head. So how can we put that on the page? Meanwhile, I wanted to tell the story of him becoming a father figure to Ciri. So those two things, Cole said wonderfully. He opens up to get Ciri to trust him by speaking his mind and his heart more. Then came the day in December when Cavill was sprinting through the woods for a scene. I remember Henry stopping up short, all of us going, did he trip? Was there a rock? Recalls Hisrich. I went to his trailer and he said he was in a great amount of pain. Cavill tore his hamstring, and a nightmare scenario for Warrior Monk signed up for a slate of action titles. It was very, very bad tear, and I was very lucky that it wasn't complete. It wasn't a complete detachment of the hamstring, he says. The Witcher's schedule was shuffled to push Cavill's action scenes to the end of the production, but the actor had to continue to work through his recovery, doing physical therapy in the early morning before going to set at 7 a.m. The difficulty was working while I was injured. He says because I wanted to do more for the production. I know how important it was for them to get stuff done, so it was having to find that balance between yes, let's push, and whoa, hold on. If I tear this further, it's the end of my action career. That was my worst moment of the past year, professionally. The physical endeavour Cavill isn't prepared to embrace is stripping down in a show that otherwise features plenty of character nudity. It would have to be particular. It would have to be specific to the storyline, Cavill says. I would say there's not that space for it. Sorry girls, sorry ladies. Based on, and lads who like that kind of thing, of course. Based on the first batch of advanced episodes, The Witcher has a more confident second season, with Geralt's personality shining through a bit more, and a far easier to follow linear narrative instead of the first season. Dunkirk-like multi-timeline format. What I'm most proud of is that when you watch the show, it's not a season that screams we shot in a pandemic, and there's only 2 people in every scene, and Henry will never do action again because he injured his leg, he said. You'll see none of that. When asked about his best and worst moments, Cavill is careful to delineate his interview boundaries by prefacing replies with professionally, suggesting there are personal moments that might mean more to him than his career peaks and valleys, but you're not going to hear about them. In that way, he's a bit Superman-like. He keeps his work life and private life very distinct. The actor will swoop down onto a set, heroically crush his duties, then retreat to his fortress of solitude in South Kensington, all while occasionally issuing non-controversial Instagram posts about topics like working out, cooking, or literally a poem. When asked about his typical day when not working, Cavill's reply could be just about anybody's walking his dog, meet his brothers or friends for lunch, have a couple of beers. I tend to slip off the radar when not working, Cavil says. I'm a private person and a family person. The spotlight is beneficial, but it can also be exhausting. I like to put my feet up without being concerned with how I'm being perceived or what I'm putting out there. And I can do that in a private space with friends and family. We've seen plenty of celebrity events where somebody's lost their temper, and I'm sure a lot of that comes down to the feeling of being exposed. Such sensitivity might partly stem from 2018's GQ Australia interview, for which Cavil was blasted and apologised for a comment he made about how the Me Too movement made him nervous about approaching women, lest he get accused of assault. I think a woman should be wooed and chased, but maybe I'm old-fashioned for thinking that. No, Henry, you're fucking awesome. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Let them say what they will about your good self and me. But this year he went Instagram official with his relationship with Natalie Vikusu, 32, an executive at Legendary Entertainment, the studio-produced Man of Steel and Enola Holmes, and posted a romantic photo of two playing chess in a rare public expression of mild anger. He also chilled some fans for their social media criticism of their relationship. It's time to stop, he wrote. It causes harm to the people I care about most. Even your most conservative and negative assumptions about both my personal and professional life just aren't true. I'm very happy in love and in life. I'd be enormously grateful if you were happy with me. I remember this, and this is interesting, of course. And he's so polite, even if he's telling people to fuck off. Henry's such a gentleman, but it's true. What the problem is all these girls and women fancy him, they've seen him with another woman, and they're jealous. It's understandable, but Henry didn't like it, and he gently reminded them of their place, and he made a good point. During the pandemic, Cavill's briefly got confessional and exposed a couple more secrets that he paints Warhammer model miniatures and has built a gaming PC. Even those disclosures felt like careful choices, hobbies that naturally endeared him even more to the fantasy fan community. Occasionally, even in Bounds questions trips Cavill's alert triggers, such as when asked, what is a decision that you regret? You know, professionally at first the actor dodges a variation on every decision was great because it led me to here. But then he offers something. There is a scene at the end of Man of Steel, he says. I'm talking to Martha. I would have smiled differently every time I see it. I'm like, that's an irritating smile. I just don't like it. Why did I smile like that? That's not how I smiled. That I would have done it differently. It's a fun answer. It's also a Cavil version of the classic job interview strategy. When asked, what's your biggest weakness? The safest reply is a variation on, I'm a perfectionist, or in this case, the tiniest thing that nobody ever noticed wasn't quite good enough. So I asked another way. What is something that you wish you had known at the beginning of your career that you know now? This time, Cavil asked for a moment to think about the question. He goes silent. He gazes at the carpet, looking a bit like a Westworld robot that is powered down. Seconds tick by. Is this awkward? Well, yeah, I'm sitting with Superman in a hotel room. Absolutely nothing is happening, and it feels like something has gone terribly wrong in this interview, even though it hasn't. Has it? But damn, this is uncomfortable and probably my punishment for not simply asking another Witcher question. The tape recorded Cavill's contemplative, what's that bloody word? Contemplative calls as lasting 42 seconds, but I'd have sworn it was at least 2 minutes. As a person, I'm quite naive, isn't the right word, but I'm very trusting and open, he says finally. I wish I'd been a bit more business savvy and smart and realised everyone has their own thing going on. I wish I had a better business mentor from an earlier age. The implication is that he was taken advantage of, but pressed about the specifics. Cavil again demurs politely, of course. Later, I ask a few of his colleagues what Cavil really like when he's not on. What is something that you wish you had known at the beginning of your career that you know now? This time, Cavil asked for a moment to think about the question. He goes silent. He gazes at the carpet, looking a bit like a Westworld robot that is powered down. Seconds tick by. I What you're hearing when he's being very careful, he's not being political. It's sensitive, McQuarrie says. Henry is a gentleman, and in a hypersensitive, ultra-scrutinised time, where any project can be imperiled by the implied, or whatever that word is, by the slightest whiff of controversy, a lack of offensiveness is arguably a performer's greatest career superpower. It's a shame more of them don't know that. One coveted IP has so far proved elusive for the British gentleman, and it seems like such an obvious fit that the biggest obstacle to it happening is that it's perhaps too obvious. He's got the physicality, the charm, the work ethic. McQuarrie puts it point blank. He'd make an excellent Bond. Vaughan agrees, so much so that the director cast Cavill as a globe-trotting spy in his upcoming Apple TV Plus film Argo. The movie is Vaughan's ode to the 1980s action thrillers like Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. With Cavill playing an 80s style spy, he even has a flat top haircut, except it's set in the modern world. I needed someone who was born to play Bond, which Henry is, and then nick him before Bond did, says Vaughan, who sees Argo as a potential franchise. He plays a larger-than-life action hero with a wink. It's very different from Kingsman. Still, we have to ask Cavill for perhaps his 100th time in the media interviews about his level of interest in the role that Daniel Craig officially surrendered with No Time to Die. Look, Cavill begins, then stops and self-edits. I hate it when people start a sentence with look. It sounds like they're lying about something. He continues, I think it would be very exciting to have a conversation with the producers in an ideal world. I'd never have to turn anything down. Nothing is off the table. It's an honour to be even part of that conversation. Cavill is currently filming Netflix Enola Holmes 2 with star Millie Bobby Brown, which will air in 2022. Enola goes out into the world and has more interaction with Sherlock now that she's established herself as a character. We dive deeper into their relationship. He says next year he'll shoot Highlander, a new version on the immortal swordsman. I can't wait for that. Big Highlander fan, if you didn't know. Action Fancy, which sources say netted the actor at least $5 million payday. Cavill says Stahelski's vision is more grounded in reality take than the original movies and shown, and will likely play a bit more like a modern tragedy. Interesting. I'm even more excited hearing that. He also has The Witcher Season 3, which will add more of Cavill's dry wit, Hisrich says, and the actor remains committed to supporting Hisrich's vision to keep The Witcher going for at least 7 seasons. Wow! Absolutely, Cavill says, as long as we can keep telling great stories which honour the author Andrzej Sapkowski's work, and if Superman is in a holding pattern, what about Cavill switching teams and joining, say, Marvel? Which character, hypothetically speaking, would he want to play? I'm never going to say a Marvel character that is already being played by someone else. Yes, we all realise that by now, because everyone's doing such an amazing job. However, I have the internet and I have seen the various rumours about Captain Britain, and that will be loads of fun to do a cool, modernised version of that. Henry, don't make me angry. Like the way they modernised Captain America, there's something fun about that, and I do love being British. What almost all his projects, real and hypothetical, have in common is their action titles. Even after his career imperiling leg injury, Cavill says he's fine with the idea of continuing to sword fight and jump and sprint into his 50s. Like Cruise, why stay still when you can run, fight and fly? Why show up unless you're willing to play at the hardest level? I'm very happy to keep doing movies that use action as a form of storytelling, and I have no particular desire to say I just want to do drama now, Cavill says. I enjoy being in the best shape of my life year after year. Despite the injuries, I want to be pushed so I can get better, and I don't want to sit down. A version of this blah 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 blah, and that's it. But that's an amazing interview which took us about half an hour to read. So what can we gauge? Because this is his first interview in a long time. He loved Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. You see, Henry is very political. He is an old-fashioned movie star. The old-fashioned movie stars of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s and early noughties didn't come out being ultrally political. They said the right things, they were polite, and Henry is an old-fashioned man, and that's okay. So what does he say about Superman? He says the cape is still in the closet. He has many ideas he would like to see in the movie. He loves the character. He wants to play him again. He would love the opportunity to play him again. That implies he hasn't had the opportunity thus far. But I think Henry's talking about a Man of Steel sequel rather than cameos. But we don't know what's going on there. Has he filmed cameos for Shazam! Fury of the Gods and Black Adam and the Flash movie? Remember when he went on a plane and said he's off to do a job? That was interesting. I think Henry's in all three of those movies, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, he says some really, really interesting things there. And I found it, I think that's a totally fascinating interview. I like the way he skips over Joss Whedon. He doesn't want to talk about it like these other people. You know, he's got a good career. He doesn't want to fuck it up. He says the right things, and that's quite right too. So what can we gauge from this about his future as Superman? Well, don't forget, because, you know, James Hibbard was very clear, there were some subjects that Cavill didn't want to touch. If he didn't want to touch these subjects, the subject of Superman, he wouldn't have done it. He was asked about the Superman of colour, and he replies, Superman is not just one colour. There's many, many versions in the comics, and why can't there be many versions of Superman in live action? He compares that to the Joker movie. That's kind of supposed to be standalone, but I'm not sure how long that will be standalone. He was talking about Joaquin Phoenix's The Joker movie. So he talks about the Superman of colour, and he kind of says, yeah, that's really, really cool, but why can't there be a place for all of us? That's a great point. So what we have to deem from all of this, has Henry got a future as Superman? It's been so, you know, if you've been following me for a long time, it's been so many different answers to that. At this moment in time, for him just to mention Superman, that means he has a future. But as I've just said, the key answer to this is when he says, why can't there be multiple versions of Superman? But think about this. The multiverse strategy is now going to have Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, and Robert Pattinson. So why can't there be, you know, 3, 4, 5 versions of Superman? You know, we've been talking about Superman 78 in the comics. Why can't Brandon Routh, why can't that be adapted for Brandon Routh? Why can't Henry Cavill get a Man of Steel sequel? And, you know, I think he's got a future. I really do. At reading that, because I don't think he would have spoken about Superman. He doesn't really speak about Superman that often. So to have him in an interview talking about Superman, how he'd love to play it again, like the capes in the closet. If I was a Henry Cavill Superman fan, which I obviously am, I would be very optimistic after reading that interview. So what I would say to you is watch this space here at Movies TV Mad for any updates on Henry Cavill's future as Superman. But all I'm going to say right now, without giving the game away, because we were talking about Henry Cavill, we were talking about him being recast as Superman. Now, I had a source that told me this. I reported this back to you. I can now tell you my confidence in that source's information isn't as high as it once was, but it was my duty as a YouTuber talking about DC and entertainment to talk about that. But after reading that interview, I'm about 75% certain that Henry Cavill will at least be cameoing as Superman in the future of the DC Extended Universe. What I don't know is whether or not he will get another Superman movie. But there's one thing for sure. People love Henry's Superman, and we do not want him being replaced. And as Henry said, why can't there be multiple Supermen? This has been Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment. Please subscribe. So important. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And of course, I'll see you tomorrow with even more videos, including the DCEU Daily, the Doctor Who Daily, and the MUFC Daily. So until tomorrow, have a lovely evening. Till then, goodbye.